Okay, we're down in beautiful sunny Hampshire with Southampton icon, Premier League legend, Matt Le Tissier. Matt, pleasure to talk to you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much, mate. Yeah, all good.
Good stuff. Keeping busy since retiring from football a few years ago now.
It's been an interesting few years. Yeah. Did a lot of media work over the last kind of 21 years since I've been retired now. So managed to fill my time all right.
Good stuff. Obviously, the Premier League is 11 games in now. It's looking like another dramatic season. At the weekend, we saw VAR once again embroiled in controversy in the Arsenal-Newcastle match. Mikel Arteta's had a rant afterwards. Do we think VAR has actually got worse this season? Are the decisions getting even less reliable?
That's a good question. I think it seems that way. The errors are kind of amplified a lot in the media, obviously. I think when it came in, people were expecting not to have these kind of debates. I remember one of the arguments that was being put when it was just been mooted, but that people were saying, but we'll have nothing to argue about in the pub afterwards.
Oh, that's not been the case at all.
Well, that has not turned out to be the case whatsoever. So I've been a little bit disappointed in the standard of the decisions that have been made, if I'm honest. And I said, even before VAR came in and we had debates on Soccer Saturday about it, that for me, I felt like it needed an ex-professional footballer in the room with the referees at the same time to advise, not to make the decisions, but to give some advice on that. And I still believe, after watching it for a few years now, I still believe it's a really good idea to do that. The referees don't want to do that because I feel like there is an arrogance amongst referees that they are the be-all and end-all. They know everything, and that players can't add anything to it. And I think that's a terrible attitude to take into it, personally.
In terms of the specific decisions this weekend, we saw Bruno Guimaraes kind of forearm smash Jorginho on the back of the head. VAR didn't seem to warrant that as being punishable, which is surprising. Then for the goal, there was a push in the back of Gabriel, but is that Arsenal fans just kind of getting a bit too whingy? Some of those decisions did seem kind of like they should have been looked at, though, I think.
I mean, there was some stuff there that I think, had the decisions gone the other way, too many people probably wouldn't have been complaining that much about it. And I think that's the key when you're looking at something like that. You say to yourself, well, if they had have given that, what would have been would the uproar been as bad as not giving it? And sometimes that is a better way to judge if they've given the right decision or not.
Do you think the fact that the crowd was so kind of involved and up for it after Kai Havertz's tackle, do you think that plays a part in the mindset of a referee?
I mean, it shouldn't do, especially if it goes to VAR, because obviously those boys back there are far removed from that atmosphere in the stadium, which is the whole idea of them being away from it. So that the whole crowd thing shouldn't really come into it when the guys are making the decision in the VAR, and they've just got to be, as honest as they possibly can. And I think that's the thing, the clarity of the whole situation. I think it would be much better if we were to hear the communications between the referee and the VAR. I think that would allay a lot of problems within the crowd who are just sat there frustrated because they don't know what's going on, they don't know what they're checking for. And I think if it was to be seen on the big screen as they go through the process, then everybody can see, and there is, accountability there. Transparency, accountability.
Agreed.
Two really important things. And at the moment, we're not quite getting that.
Speaking about transparency and accountability, is there a potentially conflict of interest? We've seen freelance referees going out to other leagues, the Saudi Pro League, Qatar, and then coming back, and the owners of those leagues have vested interest in specific teams. Is there a danger of the playing field being...
I've always actually said right from the start that there would be a conflict of interest. When you've got the same group of referees who are controlling the VAR and the same group that are refereeing, you're going to have a bloke in the VAR room who is mates with the bloke who's on the pitch. Now that is a conflict of interest, because there are times when this guy is going to have to make this guy look a bit uncomfortable because he's made a wrong decision. Now if that's your mate, you ain't really going to want to do that.
No.
So for me, I think there should be a separate group of referees that just concentrates on the VAR and a separate group of referees that just concentrates on refereeing on the field. And then you take away a small it's never going to be perfect, but there are ways that you can take away the little conflicts of interest and being more transparent and being more accountable.
And if you were in charge, would you be allowing referees to go and referee in other countries or other leagues, or do you think that's...
I wouldn't do.
No.
I wouldn't do personally. I mean, they pay them well enough that they shouldn't have to go and freelance into other countries. That's their job, and those contracts that they sign, for me, they should be just to referee in the Premier League.
I think I agree. We saw Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher almost gaslighting Arsenal fans after that, saying, why are the club writing a letter? What's all the complaining about? Just get on with the game. What do you make of those two as pundits these days recently? Have they kind of lost an element of their balance? Do you think?
I think they do tend to lose a little bit of their balance. I think they're there. Sometimes it feels like they're there just to wind the fans up of other clubs.
Doing a good job.
They do a good job of that. And sometimes they wind up the fans of their own clubs, and so if they're doing that, then you could say they're being balanced. I'm not sure it's always the case. But yeah, certainly there's things that go on there where they could handle the situation a bit better, I think.
I suppose you don't really, from their perspective, don't want to bite the hand that's feeding them either. So yeah,
exactly. Conflicts of interest.
Yeah, agreed. In terms of Howard Webb, he's obviously taken over the PGMOL this season.
Yeah.
In terms of the changes he's implemented, do you feel like we're moving in the right direction, or still?
I would say it's probably still very early on to judge Howard's contribution. I think we've got to give him a little bit more time. I certainly wasn't impressed with the leadership before him. I thought it was pretty poor then, so I'm willing to give Howard a little bit of time. I know we've had a lot of controversial decisions, but I think all this is a learning process over the years, and as long as we keep tweaking everything to make sure and to get it as good as we possibly can. As I said before, it's never going to be perfect, because there's always going to be interpretations of laws from referees that one referee will think that that's a foul, another referee might not. And then half the fans that side will think it's a foul, half the fans. And you're always going to get that in football. But I think there are stuff that they can put in place which could make sure that obviously the incident that happened, Spurs Liverpool, with the offside goal, shocking. You've got to put stuff in place that stops that ever happening again, because that was a proper amateurish mistake, really amateur, and that stuff needs to be cut out.
In terms of your playing career, you were goal-scoring midfielder, attacking midfielder, scored 100, first midfielder to score 100 Premier League goals, I believe.
Yeah,
scored some amazing goals.
Thank you.
When you watch the Premier League these days, do you see anyone that reminds you of the way you played, or is there not really? Because I was trying to think about this and I can't really.
It's a tough one.
Has the game changed?
The game's changed, yeah. The game's changed. Formations have changed.
That's right.
The manager's approach to football has changed. A lot of managers now, I mean, I watch football now and I see guys passing the ball around in their own box. And I just remember back to my managers and I'm thinking, geez, if they'd have done that in my time, they wouldn't have been playing next week. Passing across your own 6-yard box, you've got to be mad.
Dave Besant would not be having that, would he?
Absolutely not. So the game has changed immeasurably. There probably isn't space, I guess, in teams now for somebody who kind of played football the way that I did.
Would you be considered a luxury player these days? Do you think?
I was considered a luxury player back in my day, even in the old 4-4-2 formations. Right, I guess, I don't know, when I'm looking at the formations now, I actually quite like the 4-2-3-1 formation, because that system there, with me in the middle of the three, would have suited me down to the ground. I think that kind of formation actually would have been better for me than what I was playing in. Yeah,
would have suited your game more. Obviously, your penalty taking record was exemplary.
Almost.
Missed one. Missed one out of how many?
48.
48, incredible. When you see players taking penalties these days with the stuttered run-ups and the different tactics, is there someone who's the most reliable penalty taker that you see in the modern game? Tough question.
Yeah, that is a tough question.
See Jorginho, a lot of people rate Jorginho.
Yeah, I mean, the technique that Jorginho had, where he was doing the little jump beforehand, was really effective. And while the ball's going in, it looks great. The only problem you've got is that obviously you do that consistently, the goalkeeper is going to study it. and he's going to come up with a way of countering it. And that's ultimately what ended up doing. And he had a couple that got saved, and then he kind of changed his technique because he lost his confidence a little bit. That's what happens in football. Personally, for me, it was always a powerful side foot into each corner. Kept it simple. I gave myself 2 choices, and I hit the ball as hard as I could with my side foot. And I knew, because I could side foot the ball really powerfully, I knew even if the goalkeeper went the right way,
it's not getting there.
There was quite a few of my penalties where I can remember where a goalkeeper got his hand to it but couldn't stop it from going in because it had too much pace on it.
That's the way. In terms of transfers that we saw this summer, of James Ward-Prowse from Southampton, your team went to West Ham. You saw James Maddison go from Leicester to Tottenham, and Declan Rice from West Ham to Arsenal. Of those 3, which has been the best signing and the best value for money, would you say?
They're 3 very good players. I would probably say, value for money wise, I'd probably say, given what's happened this season so far, I think James Maddison, value for money, for what he's contributed to the team for the price that they paid. I think probably value for money wise, I would say James. That's not to say that Ward-Prowse and Rice haven't given their clubs value for money. It's much more difficult for Declan because he's so much more, got sold for so much more money. But I really like Declan. I think he's an absolute class player, and I think he'll be a good long-term addition for Arsenal's squad. And Prowsey's had a good start at West Ham as well. I don't think Prowsey is quite at the level of a Maddison and a Rice in terms of being international standard-wise. I think Prowsey maybe just one rung below that, but there's a lot of good stuff about Prowsey's game that a lot of other people don't have as well. So he's got some good benefits and some good attributes to add to an England squad.
Yeah, he does get involved, doesn't he? Dead ball situations.
There's nobody better from free kicks, in my opinion. At the moment, best free kick taker in the Premier League. That alone and his set pieces, for me, should warrant him a chance in an England squad for a major championship. Because if you're playing in a really tight football match, a set piece can often be the difference in a game. Very true. If you need somebody 15, 20 minutes from the end who can come on and create something, then Prowsey could do that. Man.
I remember obviously Beckham did it, didn't he, against Greece in the
Absolutely he did. Yeah, we saw how important that could be.
Moment's kind of gone down in folklore.
Absolutely.
So Ward-Prowse could be the man to do that as well.
You never know.
In the Euros. But speaking about Manchester United for a minute, Erik ten Hag, they scraped a 1-0 win last minute after back-to-back 3-0 home defeats. Does that give him a stay of execution? Do you think he'll make it to Christmas, or do you think they're going to pull the trigger?
It's an interesting one. No Premier League manager has been sacked this season, which is crazy. I think at this time last year, I think there'd been 4 had gone already. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
So maybe owners have been a little bit more patient. They've invested a lot in Ten Hag, so perhaps they will stick with him. I don't think all the problems at Manchester United lie with Erik ten Hag. I think there's a lot that needs to be done with that squad for it to be able to compete with the best in the league at the moment. And at the moment, I would say they're probably lucky to be kind of challenging for Champions League places. I doubtful whether or not they've got enough to finish in the top 5 this season.
Yeah, I think. They've had a couple of last-minute wins, haven't they? I think against Burnley as well. Was it? They scraped one. So
it's not been great flowing football. No, it's been hard work. It's been a hard watch. I watch Man United games. I don't feel particularly entertained at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's a fair shout. I think in terms of Jadon Sancho, he's obviously been frozen out by the manager.
Yeah.
Can you see that situation being resolved, or does it need one of them to leave the club?
Obviously not knowing what's happened on the inside, but for it to go on this long without Jadon apologising, when he's been told you apologise, you come back in, for him to go that long, it seems to me that's a relationship that's been burnt, and I think one or the other is probably going to have to leave.
He's either holding out, hoping that Ten Hag's sacked, or he's going to leave the club in January.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
Way. At this moment in time, if you were forced, not at gunpoint, but if someone said, "Here's £1,000," who are you putting it on to win the league? Can you see past Manchester City?
No, I can't. They're an absolute machine of a football team, and when it gets to the business end of the season, they know how to to win football matches. You know, they now had to string together 10, 11, 12 wins in a row.
Yeah.
We saw them, you know, how they overhauled Arsenal at the back end of last season. They've just been through it so many times now. It's really difficult to see another team at the moment. Relentless. I mean, that's not to say I don't want another team to win, because it would be nice to mix it up, and you know, if somebody like a Spurs could really, you know, keep their challenge going and take it all the way to the wire, I think that makes it good viewing for the Premier League.
Definitely. Talking about international football for a minute, I think the World Cup 2034 looks like it will be in Saudi Arabia now. I think Australia pulled out of the running. Considering their human rights record and the controversy around the country itself, is this a kick in the teeth for football and football fans that the World Cup's been? It'll be another Winter World Cup as well, so money talks, I guess, is the key.
Yeah, I think that when you kind of look at it all, really, the main problem is that, you know, we have bodies like FIFA in charge of football who have been proven to have a lot of corrupt individuals working for them.
Yeah, factually proven.
Absolutely factually proven. And it doesn't take much working out to realise that, you know, money does talk at that level. People get bribed all over the place. And is it a good thing for football for the World Cup to be going to Saudi Arabia? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so personally.
See, isn't it?
You know, it's not a country with a massive footballing tradition. Like you say, it's going to disrupt all the leagues again with the Winter World Cup. I'm not sure I enjoyed very much the Winter World Cup, if I'm honest. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and I feel like
I don't really want pub garden.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be interrupting the Premier League season as well.
True.
You go 6 weeks without having any Premier League football in the middle of the season. I don't think it's particularly great. So yeah, I'm not a fan of it being a Winter World Cup.
I presume you still follow Southampton's fortunes quite closely.
I do indeed.
They were unbeaten in October, got another win at the weekend. They have conceded a lot of goals. That's the only thing. So in terms of Russell Martin's start to his career as Southampton manager, how have you rated him up until this point?
Yeah, I think the way that they're trying to play is great. You know, it's quite easy on the eye. It's a little bit heart in mouth at times with the passing across your own box, as I mentioned earlier. He's very much wants it to be on the floor the whole time and pass through teams. That's a great philosophy if you've got really great players who can do it. If the players aren't as great as your Man City's players that they've got who are doing it, then it gets a little bit nervous for fans at times, and we will end up conceding goals, as you say. You know, we're probably kind of bottom 4 or 5 of goals conceded.
I think there's 3 teams that have conceded more.
Yeah, so it's
clean sheet at the weekend though.
Yeah, it's not great. Although Millwall did miss a sitter and hit the crossbar from about 2 yards with a header.
Classic Millwall,
yeah, I was watching. It's been an interesting start. We had a spell we lost 4 games in a row, which I didn't think would happen in that league.
5-0 away to Sunderland.
Yeah, I went there. I wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was hard to watch, that 4-game spell. But it looks like we're finally kind of turning things around a little bit. I think we're 7 unbeaten now. But it's going to be a big ask to get into those top 2 because you know there's a big gap developed already.
Right. Leicester looking kind of dominant.
They lost to Leeds, which was always going to be a difficult game. But I can't see Leicester falling out that top 2 at any point.
Is there any players you would like to see Southampton try and sign in January, or areas they'd like to strengthen?
I think probably areas more than players. Obviously, when you're in the Championship, you're limited into who's going to want to come and play for you in the Championship. So
wages wise as well.
It's tough, you know, and they've got to obviously abide by financial fair play rules, and so it's difficult. I would say in terms of areas of the pitch, I still think we're probably a centre forward short, like a top centre forward. I think perhaps the left back area is slightly weak, I think, in my opinion. I mean, we've had Manning's played there, Bree came in, done okay the last few games, but I just feel like it's an area where we could get more from if we had a better quality in that area.
Okay. A word about English players playing abroad. We've seen more in recent years than perhaps during your era, I would say. Jude Bellingham has taken Real Madrid by storm. What an incredible player. I mean, what's his potential? Is there any limit to it, really?
I would say his Ballon d'Or potential.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, I watched him. I went up to Wembley and watched the English League game a few weeks back. The first time I'd seen him in the flesh. Obviously seen him on telly quite a bit, but really impressed. Really impressed. His work rate, his ability, his control in tight situations of the football is second to none. He's got a big guy as well. He's a big guy. He's a strong guy. He's got an edge to him.
20 years old.
He's not afraid to speak his mind to the older senior pros and tell them where they should be. I think this boy's got everything. I really do. So potential Ballon d'Or.
Complete package.
Absolutely.
It looks good for England. We've got Bukayo Saka, Bellingham, Rashford, some good players. In terms of the Euros, should we look into win it? Is there any reason why we couldn't?
I mean, with the players we've got, I think we should be amongst the favourites to win that tournament. Absolutely, 100%. My one kind of question mark is the manager positive enough for us to do that? That's been my one question mark about Gareth. He's put us in some good positions with some solid, steady football, but when it came to the big moments, I don't think he was positive enough in how he sent his team out in certain situations when they were ahead in games. I felt like we became a little bit too defensive, and we were going to try and sit back and hold on to a 1-0 lead as opposed to go and win the football match.
The final illustrated that, didn't it? Really going ahead so early on and then
absolutely
absorbing pressure, trying to grind out the win.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's learnt from that.
I hope so, but I mean, there's kind of similar thing happened in the World Cup semi-final, and he didn't really learn when he went into the Euro final. So that Croatia game was a little bit similar.
Harry Kane's on to a record-breaking season in Germany by the looks of it. Spurs seem to be flourishing in his absence. Do you think you can see him coming back to the Premier League anytime soon, or that's him there for the foreseeable future now?
That's a good question. I mean, if I was in Harry Kane's shoes, I still would have had one eye on being the all-time Premier League top goal scorer.
That's true,
because that was within reach. I mean, if he plays till he's 36, 37, and he comes back to the Premier League, maybe has three or four seasons back in the Premier League, then he could still do it. So it's possible that he might do 2 or 3 seasons at Bayern and come back. That wouldn't surprise me. But the amazing thing is that I've listened to so many people saying, if Harry Kane left Spurs, they'd be a bottom half team. Without his goals, they'd be in the bottom half of the Premier League. And he goes, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay. That Ange Postecoglou must know his stuff, so he's doing a good job there.
Working out well for them at the moment, but it's early days, isn't it?
Oh, it's very early days, and lots can change, as we know.
Do you ever watch Soccer Saturday these days? That was going to be my next question.
Occasionally, if I'm in. I'm not actually in that much on a Saturday afternoon. If I am and Saints are playing at 3:00, I'm normally down St Mary's, or if they're away from home, I'll watch on the Saints players.
I feel like kind of the charisma of the olden days isn't quite there so much these days. And they've got Mike Dean there now, haven't they? So
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Mike Dean has added to it. I've seen him on there a couple of times. I did see the clip where Merce decided to get a little bit angry with him a couple of weeks back. That was quite funny. But there doesn't seem to be quite the same humour, quite the same level of camaraderie there than there used to be. But that's I think that's difficult, because obviously we had a team there that was together for a long time, and it took a while to get that together.
Jeff Stelling's left now as well. So
Jeff's gone. I mean, that's a tough job for Simon, because Jeff was just incredible at that job that he did. I mean, he was Soccer Saturday for me. That show was kind of built around Jeff. We were the extras. Jeff was, the man that held it all together, really. Yeah,
the glue. There's rumours that Football Focus might be cancelled as well. Do we think the way that we consume football is changing, and it's kind of
definitely
times are new?
Times are changing very much. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I watched Football Focus. I didn't even know it was still on, if I'm honest.
Right.
Which kind of tells you a lot. So it doesn't surprise me. I think there's so many different ways that people can consume their football news now, that it's difficult to attract enough viewers to make it a viable proposition going forward.
I don't know if you watch Netflix, but there was a David Beckham documentary where he was kind of labelled the 4th greatest English player of all time. Did you manage to see any of that? Or what's your take on that opinion of Mr. Beckham himself?
Listen, first and foremost, David had an amazing career.
Yeah,
what he did in his career was incredible. He got every ounce of himself, of the ability that he had. Don't get me wrong. He's not the fourth best footballer that's played for England, in my opinion. I think he's not even close to being fourth.
Probably got the best PR department.
I think he had an excellent PR department. I did see, when I saw the list come out, I was like, wow, fourth, really? Some of the players that are underneath him in that list, he couldn't lace their boots. And that's not being disrespectful to David. He was great at what he did. But for a wide midfielder, which he was for the majority of the first part of his career, I don't think I ever saw him dribble past anyone. He didn't have that ability to dribble past people. He was the best crosser of a ball I saw in my time. He was the best free kick taker in my time in the Premier League. I had a funny experience actually when I was when he was in his first England squad. I was in that squad, and Glenn Hoddle was manager of England. And I remember one training session we did afterwards. Glenn said, "I'll come over. We'll take some free kicks." There was me, David Beckham, and Glenn Hoddle taking free kicks. Now, I quite thought I was a decent free kick taker. Right? I never thought I'd be taking free kicks with two other blokes, and I'd be the crappiest one out of the three of us. And Glenn was my hero, and he was brilliant. Yeah. He could still take a free kick back then.
Yeah, incredible player in his time. But, moving on away, perhaps from football, to just looking at your Twitter. Obviously, you were quite out there in terms of your social media presence these days. Big advocate of CBD. Yeah. Obviously, it's got incredible medicinal benefits. Could you see the UK government legalising marijuana like certain states have in America? Not every state has, have they? But or do you think they're just going to stick to CBD rather than...
It's an interesting one. I don't think you can ever say never, because obviously some parts of the world have done that. So, they're always looking at things and looking at ways to improve things. So at some point it may happen. I'm not sure. I think it would probably need perhaps a change in attitudes, at top levels for that to happen. But certainly it has some incredible benefits, which me and my family have experienced already. So, which was the reason that I decided to be an advocate for it. And I don't feel any guilt, or I have people messaging me, go, "Oh, what you selling out?" I'm like, well, I've never kind of really advertised anything, promoted anything for money on a regular basis on my Twitter feed ever in 12 years. And so for me to do this, I had to know that it worked for me and my family first, which is why I tried it first. I saw the benefits, and that's why I was happy to actually advertise it and promote it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, in terms of marijuana itself, I think the UK is actually one of the biggest exporters of it.
Interesting,
which is strange, isn't it? And I think, there are obviously people with vested interests and financial gains to be made.
Like politicians and things. Do you mean that? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah,
I've heard that as well.
It is interesting that, we're happy to export it, yet we're not happy for the people to use it.
It would be interesting to actually have some studies done that weren't, compromised in any way, that weren't funded in any way by people that had conflicts of interest.
Right.
And that's what it all comes down to at the end of the day. So hopefully we get to live in a far better world in the coming years, where those conflicts of interest can be eradicated at top levels of our government.
Yeah, it would be good, but let's not hold our breath, I say, at this point in time. I was going to ask you about Jeremy Clarkson, and obviously Clarkson's Farm was very successful. I don't know if you watched it.
No, I haven't. But, heard a lot about it.
Now we've got David Attenborough's Planet Earth 3 coming out, and Clarkson's taking some shots at David Attenborough, which is kind of funny, because obviously two kind of iconic British citizens. What do you make of the fact that he's just gone out there and said, this climate change message, it's not fair to promote it, and the license fee payers are paying to be told this one side of the story, but not the other side?
I think he's absolutely right. I think part of what I've done the last few years is try to shine a light on the bits of the news that the BBC and the mainstream media won't tell you. Because there are contrasting opinions. The science isn't settled. The science is never settled. That's one of the great things about science, is that it's always evolving and you're always. So the science isn't settled, and I think Clarkson's right. I think we shouldn't be beaten down every minute of every day on every TV program telling us that we're killing the planet. I think that's absolute nonsense. I think there should be much more balanced debates on television. There's never any balance. There's never any counter argument to this climate nonsense. And so, for me, that kind of media thing that I grew up, watching and kind of taking in and believing that we were having this balanced debate, and kind of getting to my 50s and realising actually it's a load of nonsense, and we're not actually being told the truth all the time. We're just being fed one narrative.
Right.
And, that's kind of been one of my bugbears over the last 3 years, and why I've decided to speak out.
It's interesting because we spoke to Carl Froch recently, and he's similar kind of free thinking, and he's got some interesting views that we spoke to him about, and he's of a similar view that, climates fluctuate over time.
Climate has always fluctuated. Climate has always changed.
Yeah.
Nobody's denying that the climate is changing. So when somebody goes, "Oh, you're a climate change denier," climate's always changed, mate. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's just absolute nonsense talk to try and shut down debate. And what we need to have is kind of reasonable debate on how much man-made climate change there is. Because if you actually dive down into it, the actual man-made bit of it is tiny. It's not really going to have any effect whatsoever on the planet. So
exactly. Or if you go back far enough, the Ice Age, if there was an Ice Age
we've only been recording this climate stuff for the last couple of 100 years.
That's true.
I mean, this planet's been here for how long? Come on. And we've got a small snippet, and we're trying to make all these assumptions on this small snippet of information that we've got, and it's absolute nonsense.
And following on from that, in terms of, people say that, petrol cars and diesel cars are the main problem, but then electric vehicles are starting fires that are burning down car parks at Luton Airport, and the way that the actual minerals are mined to make these batteries is hardly ethical. So is there an argument there that it's doing more harm than good?
I think there is probably a far better solution than either of those two to be had. And I think with the technology that's kind of available and around, you would think that they would be able to come up with something better than electric cars,
right?
Which, as you say, are not great for the environment.
No.
With what needs to go into each battery, and also the prohibitive cost of the batteries. If that battery goes wrong in a car, you're in for a
big old bill,
big old chunk of money there.
That's right.
So I think there's probably going to be a better solution in the next few years to either petrol or electric, and I think that the sooner that comes, I think the better you can maybe do things that are going to be better for the planet, and not have to rely on either petrol or electric.
Got any inside info as to what that might be?
Well, I haven't got any inside information,
Just
but
the general info.
But common sense kind of just tells you that there's got to be some way.
They're trying to scale down nuclear reactors, aren't they? So sort of, obviously on submarines they have micro reactors. So potentially in the future, I suppose we can have just tiny little portable.
Who knows?
Nuclear reactors.
Who knows? There's going to be. There'll be something. There'll be something.
In terms of the news at the moment, there's obviously dominated by the tragic events we're seeing in Palestine and things like that. Do you feel the world is just kind of sleepwalking towards World War III at the moment? What's going on? It's a kind of scary time to be alive, isn't it?
It is a slightly scary time, I think. It seems bizarre to me that people are almost kind of cheering on the war. This is what I don't get. They're happy to call out atrocities from one group, but they won't call out the atrocities that have been done in return. And for me, that's not balanced. You have to call out both. If war crimes are taking place, you call out both of them. You can't take a side in this. If both sides are committing war crimes, I'm sorry, you have to be balanced and you have to call out both. I've always said there's not necessarily a good and a bad in each war. It's quite conceivable that there can be two bads.
That kind of is the way it's happening. I think a lot of it's kind of revenge at the moment as well, isn't it? Seemingly.
It is, but also what's happening in the Middle East. This is something again that you don't really get context from on the television. Is that most of us have no idea, and I include myself in this. Most of us have no idea about the history of that region and how far this goes back and where it all started. And to have a real understanding, and if you want to take a side, you've really got to understand the whole history of it. And if you don't understand the whole history of it, you cannot take a side. You know, for me, I don't understand the whole history. I just hate seeing innocent civilians being killed.
Yeah, that's
on both sides of the border. And that position, this is what really tells me, is that position. If people take that position, you actually get labelled as a Hamas apologist because you take that position. Now that's nonsense. You've got to call out all the atrocities, the ones that start wherever it happens. You have to call it out no matter what side it is. And the whole divide and conquer thing that goes on just kind of winds me up, and I don't like getting involved in it, so I don't take sides.
It is funny that that we saw the civil war in Syria, which didn't kind of get anywhere near this level of publicity, but yet millions of civilians were being killed in that war as well. Yet all of a sudden, when it's happening here, it does seem to be the media narrative is much stronger, and that who knows why that happens. But yeah, sad. Hopefully, it will come to peace will prevail in the long term, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, no, it doesn't at the moment. But hopefully, enough people, enough sane, solid civilians in places around the world will call for for civil protests that are calling for a ceasefire, because I think that's the sensible humanitarian approach to take. They've more than wiped out all the deaths that they had on October the 7th. They've been multiplied for what's gone on in revenge for that. So come on, at some point we as humanitarians have to try to say, this isn't right, guys. These innocent civilians are getting killed here. We have to find a way.
Yeah, hopefully that does happen. One kind of last topic I was just wanted to ask you about is social media and its impact on the next generation, or the youngsters growing up now. I don't know if you've used TikTok or you do, but
I don't know.
The way that kind of, allegedly TikTok in China is totally different from TikTok in the Western world, and the way that it's being kind of used to influence the way people are.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
I
think it's dangerous.
If you had children now, would you be?
I've got a 14-year-old daughter now, and I stopped her from using TikTok.
It's quite wise, yeah.
I didn't like. I actually spoke to a couple of politicians who had actually investigated TikTok and had advised me and said, do not let your children on there. And so I took that advice, and thankfully my daughter didn't kick up too much of a stink about it.
That's good.
But we're trying to bring up our daughter to not be consumed by social media, and to get her to understand how the social media companies can manipulate your thoughts by the content that they put in front of you. And I think social media can be a good thing. It has some good bits about it. I mean, it's got some really crap bits about it as well.
You're right. There is a balance there.
So for me, I think as long as you can try to educate people of the downside of social media, so that they know what to look for, so they know when they're being manipulated. If you can do that and get them just to focus on the good bits of social media, then I think that's a decent way to try and do things. I think the genie is out of the bottle in terms of it's not going to go away.
No.
Despite how much negative effect it can have, and it's very pervasive. And I think we have to teach our children the tricks that these social media companies are using to get them to manipulate their thoughts, to get them to buy stuff, to want stuff. And so as long as you can do that, then they can use the social media and still know what's going on and know when they're being manipulated. And if you can do that, then I think that's okay.
Yeah, I've got a 4-year-old son, so I've got this to come.
Well, good luck.
Prepare him. But in terms of one more thing I was just thought about then, certain companies massively benefited during the pandemic, right? During lockdown, if you look at Uber Eats, Deliveroo, those kind of companies, and the way that people were trying to make money from being at home in their living room, OnlyFans being one. We've interviewed some OnlyFans models who have kind of switched into boxing now, influencer boxing. But is there a danger of, minds being corrupted by OnlyFans girls and guys growing up thinking it's just a quick, easy way to make money at home, get paid, get your kit off? Like, it's a bad state of affairs.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs really when that's what you've got to stoop to make money, I guess. But individuals have to make their own choices. That's entirely up to them. That's where they have to understand where their moral compass lies in terms of what they've chosen to do as a living. So be it. I'm very much an each to their own kind of guy. Okay. And if you want to do that, you can do that. But also, if you're going to do that, just have some kind of thought about how it's going to affect the people around you.
True, and that's what Piers Morgan was saying to Elbrook. How do your kids feel about what you're doing? And her response was, well, they can cry in a Ferrari, which is a funny soundbite, but you're also not really taking into account how they might feel when they grow up and then see that's how their mum has their house.
Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly great soundbite, if I'm honest. No. I think that's a very crass way of looking at it.
True. But back to football. For the rest of the season, what you're going to be? You're still you're ambassador for. Not anymore.
Not an ambassador for Southampton. No. I go and watch Southampton.
That's right.
So I still go and watch. I resigned my position last year to stop.
Of course.
The club were getting a bit of stick because they some of the fans weren't happy with some of my opinions and that they didn't think I should be an ambassador for the club. So I just resigned so that the club didn't have to put up with that nonsense anymore.
Fair enough.
So I still go and watch Southampton. I'll still go and watch every game, work permitting. I love going down there. Still love the football. Still watch quite a lot.
In terms of coaching and stuff, you've obviously got a lot to offer. Well, would you?
I never really enjoyed the coaching. I never enjoyed the coaching side of things. That was never kind of an ambition of mine after football. Didn't really enjoy it. I don't know. It's just one of those things. I think I so loved playing football that I think I would be too frustrated.
Because the players couldn't, close. Because they couldn't live up to
but also to be that close to the pitch and not be able to get on the pitch.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not so much from the players not being able to do what I could, because I knew that there wasn't many players that could do what I could do. Yeah, they could do other stuff that I couldn't do, and that's what makes a team.
You're right. You're right. Everyone has some of their parts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Outside of football, what are your kind of interest these days?
I play lots of golf.
I thought golf might be the one. Yeah.
I play lots of golf. I love it. I try and play 3 or 4 times a week. Handicaps at 2.9, I think, at the moment.
That's pretty decent, isn't it?
So
scratch the target.
I want to get to scratch. I really do. So I'm trying to work towards that. It's hard though, because I don't have the same natural ability at golf as I had at football. So it comes a little bit harder. But I love it, and I never get bored of playing golf.
There's some beautiful courses around here, I would
think. Yeah, there certainly is. And I've got some good mates that I play with. We have great fun on the golf course. You get that competitive edge as well. That never leaves you. You still don't like losing.
You'd probably rather be out there now. Look at the
weather. I might pop out after we've finished, and I might go and have a little bit of practice.
All right, let's wrap it up then. Matt Tissier, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, mate. Good to talk to you.
You too. Cheers.